Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Mary Lynn Loader. I'm Deputy Director of the Metropolitan Sewer District, and we are here to discuss, really just have another question and answer session. And we do have some other members of the partner team that are dealing with this incident that originally occurred on Christmas Eve at the gas station located at the corner of West 8th and Pedretti. So I want to let you know we've got participants from different agencies here tonight. Myself, as I said, Mary Lynn Loader with Metropolitan Sewer District. Deb Leonard is here as well, and Eric Evers from MSD. I think we also have Matt Mullen from Office of Environmental Quality, District Chief Caldwell from Cincinnati Fire Department, Ann Gregg from Ohio Health Department, as well as Antonio Young from the Cincinnati Health Department. And let's see, I think we also have Ed Gordner from Ohio EPA, and then Vern Ord from the chief of the Bureau of Underground Storage Tank is also here. And he, in just a little bit, will provide an overview of some of the activities that have been going on, as well as some of the buster requirements for the station to address. So just to recap, in terms of what some of the local agencies have continued to work on over the last several weeks is really just continuing to do the work to oversee the station. And as many of you know, the station remains closed. And really that is an order by the Cincinnati Fire Department, and it remains closed to fully address the issues of non-compliance that's outlined by Buster. So the Cincinnati Fire Department and District Chief Caldwell, as well as his two fire chiefs have been fire specialists have been available to monitor activities of what's been going on at the gas station, as well as available to local residents who have some concerns, if any, with regards to indoor air quality, to test some of the air quality. And at this point in time in the last week, I don't think there's been any calls to them. And District Chief can talk a little bit more about that. There may have been one that they have gone out to just investigate in the last week. Health Department is also here, and they have provided specific information to residents, and they continue to get those updates from the Cincinnati Fire Department as necessary. And anybody with specific concerns on air quality can also reach out to either Ann Gregg or Antonio Young, and we're putting their contact information on the website that MSD set up so that you can get that directly and reach out to them if you have any specific concerns. The Office of Environmental Quality, Matt Mullen, is also on the team to provide some inspection of what's been going on at the site whenever there is any either investigation work going on, and is overseeing some of those activities as well. So again, I did mention the website that we have at msdgc.org / I think it's gas leak. Is that what it is, Deb?
Correct. msdgc.org / gas leak.
Okay. So we're trying to keep updated information on there, with regards to contact information or any updated info that we have. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Vern Ord. He is with Buster, and he's here with us tonight, I believe, and he can give us somewhat of a report out of what ATC, who is representing the environmental consultant representing the gas station. They're here tonight as well. Dan Adams is here with ATC, and he's been working on different activities as it relates to the pump out of the material over the last, since this began. At least he's aware of that information, has some of that information, as well as has been conducting the Tier 1 investigation that we've talked about in prior meetings, and also implementing the immediate corrective action. So I'd like it if Vern Ord from Buster can maybe provide an update and an overview of what activities have been undergoing at the site on behalf of Buster's requirements.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. To date, and I'm going to make it kind of two parts. One is the immediate corrective actions in the investigation that is ongoing, and some of the other activities involved with the immediate corrective actions. First of all, the tank cavity has been dewatered. They continue to monitor the tank cavity, and they continue as needed to dewater the cavity. As of today, reported to me by Ralph Mertz, my site coordinator for the site, there is very little liquid in the tank cavity currently. Second of all, Dan Adams of ATC attempted to put an interception type trench in. It was twofold. It was to separate the sewer lateral from the existing product line, and to also set vapor extraction points so vapors could be extracted from the sewer lateral trench itself. After a couple of attempts, they ran into some obstacles that were unforeseen, an old building foundation, and a large amount of pea gravel, which would lead you to believe that they ran into another old tank cavity that was previously on the property, an old tank cavity. Within the past week, ATC has performed what we call a Tier 1 source area investigation, which involves the installation of borings, gathering of soil samples and water samples. That was performed. Good news is all they hit was tight clay for the 4 borings that they put in. They did set wells on the bedrock at around 18, 19, 20 feet, somewhere in there. And they are waiting for water to charge in those monitoring wells that they installed. Soil samples were taken at 3-foot intervals. They were screened. The highest one, well, actually the highest 2 screened samples would go to a laboratory for analysis of certain chemicals of concern that we look at when a gasoline release is involved with an underground storage tank system. Same thing will be done with water. Once water's had an opportunity to recharge or charge in the existing monitoring wells, and water samples will also be submitted to a laboratory for analysis. The end product will be all compiled in a report which will highlight all the activities that were involved with the petroleum release. And there will also be a determination made at that time whether further investigation is warranted or not, based on the analytical results. We do have screening levels for soil. We have screening levels for water as well. The second part is what the owner is doing at the recommendation of his underground storage tank contractor. And that is that he has signed a rather large contract and dedicated himself and the facility to be upgraded. And what I mean by upgraded is that all new product lines, which will be double-walled, self-contained product lines, new submersible pumps, new containment sumps with alarm probes, will be installed at the facility. What this means is if there is another piping release, it will not release into the environment. It will go into what they call an interstice, which is the space between the primary pipe and the secondary pipe that wraps around the primary pipe. And it will be channeled to a designated sump with a sensor in it. And if there's any petroleum, even petroleum vapors, well, it depends on what type of sensor. If they use a vapor sensor, even vapors will trigger the sensor. If it's liquid, it's still pretty sensitive. Only a few inches of product will be allowed to accumulate in that sump, and the alarm will go off. Ralph informed me today, Ralph Mertz, that work is to start very soon. So as of right now, that's what I have.
Thank you very much, Vern. And So you said, according to the on-site work, or the on-site investigation and Ralph, that work that you talked about with regards to the on-site replacement of piping and with that being double walled, that's going to start soon. And that work does require a permit by the city of Cincinnati, Cincinnati Fire Department.
That is correct.
Okay, so District Chief Caldwell, can you talk about the permit that you are either in the process of reviewing or have reviewed, and what that permit will allow?
Yes, we have reviewed the permit and approved the permit for what the chief just described for the repair work of the three tanks that they have. Two of them for a modification, one for a major repair for the line that was leaking. So the permit is good for those repairs. This is standard for any gas station that wants to upgrade or do any repairs. They have to get a permit to touch the lines to make modifications. So this is a standard procedure for any gas station that wants to do this. So this was approved today from what they submitted. We reviewed it and approved for them to go ahead and upgrade and make the modifications. And they estimate the work will start sometime next week. Fire department will be on site every day to ensure that this work is going according to what the permit is designated in the permit. So if they get a permit from the fire department, we have to ensure that everything that they're doing, that they describe in the permit, is the only thing that they're using the permit for. This permit is only good for repairs, and they would have to submit and get a new permit for them to open up the gas station again, meaning to put hazardous material on site in the tanks, which is the gasoline. And for the operation of the gas station, they would have to apply for another permit, but that's after all the work is complete and done and tested.
If I can add, this is a very large investment, money-wise. It's in excess of $100,000 is my understanding. And I think that's a pretty good sign that the current owner doesn't want something like this to happen again. I think, he's making a large investment to assure that he is being a good neighbor to the residents there in Price Hill.
Vern, could you also talk about, I think, as I recall, I thought I heard that that Buster required an additional tank tightness test?
Yeah, and they did run it, the tightness test, but by the mere fact that he's in the process of upgrading, those tanks will all individually be tested again. So it's really a moot point, our requirement. So once all the work is done, everything has to be precision tested again and inspected and witnessed by the city of Cincinnati's fire department.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think it's just important maybe to also just maybe outline again, how does this, like what they're doing now, compare to what they had before?
Well, compared before, they had an installation that was installed pre-double wall requirements in the state of Ohio. And they had a system that it was legal, it's allowed as long as they maintain compliance for that system. But by the mere fact that they are installing a double wall system versus what they had before, they had single wall piping, nothing, there's no interstice, no secondary piping around the primary piping. They had no sumps. It was just an old style installation that was very common in the time period that the system was installed. Standard industry practice. And then, of course, the Federal Energy Policy Act 1996 changed all that. And once it became law, we incorporated their requirements, the federal requirements, into the state administrative rule. So anytime you replace a product line, you're looking at putting double wall piping in, you're looking at putting sumps in today. New installations are all fully self-contained, no matter where you go in the state. say somebody wanted to pull old tanks or go to a clean piece of property and put a gas station in. It has to all be fully self-contained. Double wall tanks, double wall piping, containment sumps, all the bells and whistles. And that's all been driven by the federal government and their regulations.
Okay. In addition, so when this work is getting done, that's permitted for repair, I understand that ATC will also be doing additional investigation and potentially removal of any other material that they identify to, have some material still in it potentially. Can you talk-
Potentially, yeah, they'll be doing further investigation on the removal, during the removal of the piping run, and they will evaluate the situation at that time. And if necessary to remove any contaminated material, I'm assuming that will take place, but not necessarily. It just depends on what they find.
Okay.
Marilyn, I don't mean to interrupt, but we have two hands raised.
Okay, great.
First one
Thanks.
came from Sean Newman, and then we have one from Lanzalota.
Okay, great. So Sean Newman.
Good evening, everybody. My question is for Vern. With the sensors that are going to go on the new sump pumps, are they going to be integrated into their Veeder-Root system? And if so, can we guarantee that the employees are going to be trained on that new system and not ignore alarms?
Yeah, that, and we will work with the Cincinnati Fire Department to get the training across to the owner. That's, you were in the industry, Mr. Newman, and you know as well as I do, the small operators all over the state have issues with alarms. And, my prayer and my hope is that once this is all said and done, that the new owner becomes super familiar with these tank system, with the Veeder-Root system, with everything that's going on. I'm hoping he's there and involved when they're installing the new piping, the new sumps, and it's explained to him how things work.
Are they installing a completely new Veeder-Root system, or?
That I'm not sure. I was told that they're going to rewire everything. That'll all be all new wiring.
Okay.
So I can only assume, and I hate to assume, but I can only assume that would be the case.
Okay. And do we know the model number of the current system? And
I do not.
Yeah, Mr. Newman, I actually was on site last week and I did take a picture of the system and I wanted to get it to you. I can get that to you this evening. I'll get your contact information from Deb.
Okay, that'll be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Lanzalotto.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. My question's also directed to Vern. I think you kept mentioning you were testing material in the tank. Is it the tank void?
No. Well, they ATC performed what we call a suspected release investigation. A technical term, we call it a source area investigation. They installed 4 borings around the tank cavity, not in the tank cavity, to the native soil. And the reason they do that, they want to see if the release that was in the tank cavity, that they identified in the tank cavity, had migrated out of the tank cavity and was posing any kind of a risk.
So the term I picked up, I said it wrong, is the tank cavity. Are the tanks still underground, or have they been removed?
No, they're still underground.
So will they be using?
They're underground, they're empty.
So before they're recertified, those tanks will be removed and new upgraded tanks installed?
No, they're leaving the tanks and they're installing new submersible pumps and all the equipment associated with it, new double wall piping and new sumps. There will be sumps around the submersible pump. There'll be sumps under the dispensers. If there's any other junction points, there will be sumps. We call them containment basins or catch basins. And the reason for that is if there's the pumps leak every now and then, they have failures. It's just, they're man-made and it happens. But if you have a sump around them, it doesn't make it, the release doesn't make it to the environment. Same way with double wall piping. If you have a release from the primary piping into the interstice, which is this void between the primary piping and the outer piping that wraps around it, it is designed to where it migrates back into one of those containment sumps. And then inside the containment sumps, there are liquid measuring devices that would trigger an alarm to let you know that you have an issue. If there's a sudden loss of product, the automatic tank gauging system should still shut the system down.
So are the current tanks and what will be the tanks going on in the future, are they consistent with current technology and the current regs?
They are consistent with the current regs. They are single wall tanks, or not double wall tanks. If they were to replace the tanks, they would have to be replaced with double wall tank, a double wall tank or double wall tanks. But they are single wall tanks. As long as they are maintained, they are perfectly permissible under our rules and regulations, and also the federal rules and regulations.
Thank you.
So I just put up on the screen, this is a visual that Vern had provided to us previously. Is this an illustration, Vern, of the existing, an illustration of the existing tank?
Yeah, you see the red object. That's what they call a submersible turbine pump. That's what draws the product out of the underground storage tank. The fill port at the bottom sets about 18 to 24 inches off the bottom of the tank. That way, if there is any water that gets in the tank, or there's any debris in the tank or dirt, which happens, it won't pick that debris up and dispense it into an automobile. As you can see, this red submersible pump, it's setting in a box. It's a cutaway. That's what we call a containment sump. If there's any leaks inside that, it will be contained there. The piping.
So let me ask a question with regards to this sump. Is like the current system that was in place in 2020? Did they have a sump like this?
No, it wasn't required when the install.
Yep. So this is going to be an upgrade to the protection containment system.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and also the piping you see, it's leading to dispensers. Under dispensers, this green box is basically, it's self-contained. So if there's any leak of product from a dispenser or the piping connections in the dispenser, it would be contained in that green box. Also, the piping, you see, says figure 11. It will be double walled. In other words, it'll have a primary pipe with an interstice with a secondary pipe around it. If there's a leak in the primary piping, it's designed to where the interstice will capture the fluid and route it back to one of these containment sumps.
That's number 11. That's this right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's essentially what happened with this this situation we're dealing with now. It was not a double walled pipe. There was a leak and it leaked, right? Now, if
that is correct.
Yeah. So if it happens again, now you have a double walled pipe. So if a leak happens in the pipe, it's actually going to get captured by the secondary pipe and then bring it to either this sump, or the sump here.
That, or there may be a containment sump in between.
Okay.
It just depends on how it's configured.
Okay. And then it's also my understanding that there's going to be like a vapor extraction well set up so that
that's what ATC was attempting. Dan can speak more to that about the issues that they've run into trying to install that. It should have been a simple task, but because of the geologic conditions or the unknown conditions, subsurface conditions, they haven't been able to do that yet. And I'll let Dan explain that.
Yep. Dan, you want to yourself and add
Yeah,
anything?
what's going to happen is while they are, when they start to replace this piping, that piping trench crosses the sanitary sewer line on the site. And at that location, I am going to install right in here, I'm going to install an extraction well below the product piping trench into the backfill that's on top of that sanitary sewer line, and then cap that off so I can, so that I can extract any residual, gasoline that's been absorbed onto the granular backfill, and get it out of there so no, it doesn't leach into the sewer anymore. So yeah, right in there. And also I can mention that while they're replacing the piping, when they pull the piping, the old piping that's in there, that open trench that the piping runs in, the backfill material, any backfill material in that trench that was impacted by this release will be removed. So that source of any further impact will be gone, taken off site for disposal.
Mary Lynn,
And
you're
that's-
muted, but we also have a raised hand from
Okay.
Laura Hamilton.
And that's the work that both fire and Office of Environmental Sustainability will be overseeing that work as well. Okay, and hand is raised, and go ahead and speak.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming together again for us. I had a couple of questions. And this is for it says board on the screen. I'm sorry, I've already lost my train of thought and lost your name.
That's me, Vern.
Vern, thank you. I just remembered it says board on the screen when you're on there. So in the cutaway that you showed us, I'm just trying to understand that drawing of the tank with the sumps. Yeah, there, Marilyn, just thank you. Just put that up. Are these plumbed like in a series? So once the sump leaves we've got 6 pumps over there. Are there like 3 connections, each feeding 2 dispensers, or is there a single connection and then it runs in some sort of series after it leaves that submersible that's pulling the gas up from the tank? How does that work?
Well, I don't know the exact configuration they have, but every submersible pump for each tank will have a sump. Every connection along the way to the dispenser island, if there are any, would have a sump. And then you have the sumps under the dispenser, which is the final destination point for all the product lines. I don't know what kind of system they have. I don't know if they have blender pumps. I don't have all the details, but ideally everything is contained that is pushing product.
Okay, so I asked you that then to ask you this, but I needed to kind of get that picture, and I'm still not perfectly clear. But when you talk about this double-walled piping that you've mentioned several times, will that be every single pipe that is outside of that dispenser sumps protective housing that you pointed out in the cutaway there? Will every pipe feeding everything when it leaves that point be double walled, or only the main feed out, and then if things are in a series elsewhere?
Everything outside, yeah, everything outside the containment sump will be double walled, all the product lines. My understanding is that every product line at the facility is being replaced. I saw the question come up, so I'll go ahead and answer that. Each individual, the regular unleaded and the premium unleaded lines, they will be replaced with double wall piping.
Okay, and you mentioned regular and premium. What about the mid-grade?
Like I said, I don't know the configuration at the facility. A lot of facilities, they blend at the dispenser. They only have 2 product lines running to a dispenser, and they blend the premium with the regular unleaded to get the mid-grade. If there's 3 product lines, if they have a dedicated mid-grade line, My understanding is all product lines were being replaced.
Now,
They're being
let me
replaced. They're
backtrack.
required by law to be replaced with double wall piping.
Let me just backtrack with you there, because it was my understanding, and maybe I just don't understand, that they had 3 tanks on the site here, and I presumed, and maybe that was stupid of me, that that was 1 tank for each grade. Do I understand that right?
Not, well, like I said, there's different configurations. A lot of facilities have gone to using their former mid-grade tank, and they put regular unleaded in it. And then they pipe those or plumb those together and use those 2 tanks to blend with the premium to get the mid-grade. So I don't know the configuration. All I can tell you is everything is being upgraded with double wall piping. All piping's being replaced with double wall piping, sumps, under dispenser containment. Everything's going to have new wiring. And basically that's what I've been told. And I don't know if the city of Cincinnati Fire Department wants to jump in. You know, I don't know what the permit is exactly for, other than basically to upgrade everything.
Okay, and I don't want to, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to apologize in advance, because I feel like I'm always the person in this meeting who sounds like I'm beating people up. Some of the words you're using concern me. It's my hope. It's my prayer. I've been told, according to the owner, it was my understanding that ATC was going to be the lead here, who makes the determination of what should be done to correct this problem, and that you would be, in terms of, though the gas station is your client, that you would be the person who's protecting the surrounding residents here. That's how that was portrayed to us by Buster, and maybe that's all wrong. It sure feels wrong, but that you would be the agency determining all that, and that Buster would just make sure what ATC said needed to be done got done. And I'm hearing you say you're not sure what the setup is, and some of those other things I said, and I'm getting very, very nervous.
Well,
So,
let me help clear things up for you. First,
sure.
ATC is taking care of the environmental aspects, the petroleum release. They're not in charge of replacing the tank or that type of stuff. They have another contractor who they've hired to come in and do the tank replacements, and not the tank replacements, but the piping replacements, installation of all the other stuff to help the situation out. In other words, what's the name of the other? Is it MVM? What is the name of it?
M&M.
M&M. We have MVM and
A lot of them.
yeah, M&M. They will be tasked with replacing the piping, installing sumps, submersible pumps, doing all the upgrade work. ATC is just there, and the only thing they're responsible for is the environmental aspects, the investigation, the cleanup, the removal of the free product. That's what they're there for. When I made the comment, I hope and I pray, what I meant by that is that we have an owner that we have other owners in the state of Ohio as well that don't fully understand the underground storage tank system. And my hope is that he works with this contractor when they're installing all this equipment and comes to understand what it means and how to operate it properly.
Certainly, and I can appreciate that. So then what you're telling me is that it's M&M who's deciding what the fix should be in terms of like what should be replaced. And are they in this meeting right now with us?
I don't know.
No,
but
if I can speak, they are deciding the design or what they're going to put in per the owner. What they're putting in is legal. They will be observed by a trained UST delegated inspector by Cincinnati to make sure that they're doing it correctly. But it's like you're picking out your own sink or your own furnishings. They decide what kind of bells and whistles that they have, or they're going to buy and they're going to install on the ground. We've been told that, and by law, they have to have double wall tanks. So anytime they're removing a significant portion of the UST system, like they're doing, there's certain requirements, like they're going to put sumps in, they're going to put double wall piping in, there's certain requirements. As to the configuration of mid, blend, premium, it really doesn't matter. It matters that the contractor is going to do his job at the site, and there'll be an inspector there to make sure that everything's hooked up and proper. There will be tightness testing done on every single new piping, the entire system, the tanks, to guarantee it's tight.
Okay, so just, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I need to ask this question, and I guess I'll ask you, Lori, because it seems like maybe you're a better person to ask than Vern.
No, I just know the law.
Well, right. So if current law requires double-walled tanks, as you just said, and I think Vern said that earlier, and these tanks are grandfathered, and they're going to dig up pretty much of their parking lot in order to get to all of this plumbing for the 6, or actually I guess it's 8 pumps. They're double-sided pumps, and there are 4 double-sided pumps. I guess it's actually 8, 4 standing pump structures. If they're going to those lengths to dig up all that concrete for the pipe, why would it not be a good idea for the reassurance of the state of Ohio, MSD, fire, and the residents for them to go ahead and replace these tanks with the current double-walled tanks rather than having these grandfathered 1988 tanks still in the ground?
You can thank the legislation for that. Yes, it's legal. They do not have to replace those tanks.
I'm not asking if they legally have to. I'm asking if that would not be a good idea if someone shouldn't advise them.
I think you know the answer already. I mean, of course it'd be good, but it's highly expensive. And I'm sure that this individual right now, as everybody would want him to do, is putting the money towards the assessment to make sure that the petroleum that's in the soil or groundwater or sampling is still there, and to take any steps to remediate that potential issue. So right now, it's a business decision. It's not illegal. If he had all the funds in the world, I'm sure he would do that, but it's extremely costly.
I understand your point, and I appreciate that. It's just that we've already seen a pattern of non-compliance, and it sounds like we're saying that what needs to be fixed here is actually up to him. And of course, he's going to take the path of least resistance on the matter. So that's a bit of a concern. And while I've got you, that report you sent me about the October 30th inspection had a lot of tests that had not been done by the owner, and he was marked non-compliant, I believe, in 7 areas.
Mostly because it wasn't hooked up. The ATG was not hooked up.
And it was clearly, I guess, supposed to be. That's why it's marked as non-compliant.
Well, no, at the time the inspector showed up, they were under repairs, they were under remodeling.
There were follow-on notes that went into December, I believe, as far up as the 15th, that he was still non-compliant and not submitting those. And I'm curious.
Because he was working with his contractor to try to address the issue, M&M.
On December,
there several times.
On December 15th?
I think the 13th. They were there twice, M&M. Contractors to try to resolve the problem.
Was this release known at that time?
I do not know.
Who does? Who knows the answers to that?
We may not know.
Why wouldn't we? Why can't we find out? I'm confused. Because they may not.
Because because the law says exactly, we don't have to pinpoint exactly when it occurred. If you want to talk to your attorney about pursuing anything, by all means. But under the law, it is not illegal to have a release. Now, it did happen. They were grandfathered tanks. This happens more regularly than you would think. He's addressing the issue. Legally, we do not need to pursue certain things. In fact, our jurisdiction does not say we need to pursue this. Legally, you cannot overstep your bounds. So we have to follow the law. We have, and our duty is to make sure he's following the law, which he is right now.
Okay, well, that's a troubling answer, but an answer nonetheless, and I appreciate it.
It's a
Thank
law,
you.
it's a legal answer. It's legal. We have, as an agency, we have to follow the law, and that's what we're doing.
And just so you understand, I don't have an attorney, nor do I consider myself to be personally impacted inside my home by this situation. I'm just a few hundred feet away and am concerned.
Yes,
So
I
when you
mean,
say call your
I'm
lawyer,
the
I
attorney
don't
for
have
the
that legal
agency.
to get
You can
one.
consult an attorney. You can definitely consult an attorney.
There's no need. I'm just trying to seek out answers for myself and the other people who are
Sure.
listening.
And I
Thank you.
sent you lots of literature on the information and how it works.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
We also have a hand raised from Sean Newman as well.
Laura, I may have a contact at M&M if he has not retired. So I will see what information I can get from them and relay back to you. I also want to make sure that everybody understands. And Lori, thank you for kind of trying to explain it.
It's very hard. It's hard to explain. It really is. And it's concerning.
Right.
But again, the law is in place. It was approved by the legislation. We've advocated for stronger measures. Legislation says, no,
And
this is.
I understand exactly how that all works. I do.
Yeah.
It's
We do the best we can.
for our neighbors and our residents. Sometimes they don't understand the legalese. And you know, I try to put it in layman's terms. And it's hard to read governmentese and,
Yes.
and translate it. It's very difficult.
It's
And
extremely hard.
Laura has some great questions, and I hope that I can get some answers from M&M based on my contacts. Again, Laura, I don't know if that person has retired. It's been a couple years since I've been in the industry, so I will see what I can find out and advise you. So, thanks.
I mean, it's a perfect world with endless money. Lots of things would occur. Unfortunately, we're kind of at a nexus of we're trying to be protective of human health and the environment, but we also have to deal with the business side of it, the legislation, the money that's involved in running a business, etc. I mean, everybody is sort of concerned when you hear about gasoline, carcinogens, etc. And that's what our program is about, is trying to assess if there's any residual risks, as well as the owners have to do certain steps to try to prevent releases. But releases do occur, and they do occur frequently. But there's a system in place that analyzes that through science to see if there's a long-term risk. You actually are exposed to more carcinogens by pumping your gas, you know, and your fuel and your gas than you could probably get from, you know, a release. It's or the VOCs from your car. So it's scary, but yet it still is. There's a process. There's a legal process that we have to go through to address it. We can't speed it up. We can't, you know, hammer him for having a release. All we can do is sort of guide him and others through the process. And from what we've seen, this man is, and through his consultant, which is a good consultant, don't quote me, Dan, but they are addressing it very expediently. There you go. They're doing above and beyond what the law actually requires. I don't know if that gives comfort to anybody, but they are really addressing the problem very quickly. The timetables are very expedited. They're really doing a great job in addressing this release from what I've seen and what Vern's seen over the years.
So it's my understanding that samples were collected earlier this week from the soil. Groundwater samples are anticipated to be taken, once the wells replenish themselves. How soon might some of those results be available to then determine what next?
Let Dan address that.
We should receive soil analytical results within the next week or two. It's usually a 5 to 10 day turn. The timing of the water recharging to those wells, I'm not sure if it's going to take a rain event or if it's just going to take a little time for water to collect in those wells sufficient to collect samples. The good news is that there's not a lot of groundwater moving around that tank system, and we have no evidence that any product escaped from that tank cavity or the hole that the tanks are in. So it was a good result from the soil boring and well installation this week.
We have another raised hand from Lane Zalota.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Matthews, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm probably a lot older than you, and I was doing environmental law back in the 80s when Buster was really getting started, and there were a lot of old tanks pulled at that time. A lot of them filled with, pumped out and filled with sand. A lot of them decommissioned. Has there been a change in the law or?
I'm older than you think.
Well, take that as a compliment. You don't look it.
Well, thanks. I also have an environmental engineering degree. So I know a little bit about the science as well. The federal law, when it came into effect in 1984, it was like the Wild Wild West. They had a requirement that basically said, okay, certain systems or all your UST systems have to meet all these upgrades by, when was it, Vern, like 98, 99? And then so you see this rash of all these tanks being pulled
when I first hired in, I was sent we had a satellite office in Dayton, and I moved over there in 1991. And you could not drive up and down the interstate 75 without seeing 2 or 3 tank pulls taking place. I forget how many tanks went out of the ground.
So many files, files.
And then in 1998, December 22nd, 1998, there was a final upgrade requirement for spill and overfill protection. That also drove a lot of the old bare steel tanks out of the ground. In fact, it drove us to where we had a backlog of closure, what we call closure assessment, the environmental reports for closure, where environmental work was done and reports submitted to us. And we physically could not get to them. We didn't have enough people.
Oh, they had massive layoffs at the exact
same time.
We
had massive layoffs too.
Yeah,
we also had
we lost
2/3 of our staff. But anyway, that set us back for about 13, 14 years before we finally got through all those reports. You work with what you got, you work with the money you've got, the resources you have. You got to think smart about how you go about. We had overtime projects when we had money available that were dedicated to reviewing the reports. We had private contractors reviewing the reports when we had money. Money.
So, and see, our money comes from the feds. It comes from US EPA. They say we have to, follow certain protocol and be as stringent as they are to get the money. So it'd be nice if we had a nice basket of money. We can do a lot more. But so they give us the loans. It basically covers salaries. We used to have an immediate response, but the layoffs and cut of our budgets, we had to do away with that. So we're kind of also the feds. they're pushing more toward release prevention than, corrective actions. So we're kind of stuck with this backlog of issues that we had to deal with. And now we're pushing more towards release prevention and trying to educate the operators as to what to do. As you can probably gather, it's very technical. It's very hard to understand these systems. There was a push to have operator training. So now we had to do rules that have all the operators have to be trained on their systems, et cetera. So there's kind of that push. There hasn't been a major federal requirement upgrade to tank systems since 98, I think. It's mostly been release prevention that they're kind of pinpointing their efforts at.
So that's been a change in emphasis, a change as to where the money is routed.
Flowing. Yeah.
And therefore retrofitting, replacing tanks, that's not a priority now. Is that right?
No, it's a lot of them are fiberglass, so we don't have the bare steel like we used to. Now we have that any new tanks going in the ground have to be completely double walled. So luckily, any system that's going in or any part, like in this system, the parts that are going in have to be double walled. And that is it's very good news for stations that are upgrading or new stations going into the ground, like the grocery stores, they're getting in the gas business. All of those tanks have every single bell and whistle and double wall you can imagine. So that the feds are pushing us to go towards that direction. Technology has led to this, it's safer. So that's kind of where the push is, the angle is. But unfortunately, we just can't get the law passed that says that people have to go and yank up all the old tanks and retrofit them. There's just the legislation and the stakeholders allow these items to be grandfathered in.
Well, it's
Thank you.
fiscally impossible for a small one owner person to spend $1 million to put tanks in. If you're a conglomerate and not a franchisee, it's a lot easier. But replace those tanks, it's upwards near $1 million.
Yeah, the system is built for big owners nowadays.
Right. So,
yeah, the little guy is, and that's probably the way of the future. You see the gas stations and the grocery stores.
Just for a matter of record, when I first hired in with the state, and Mr. Newman was around then, 75 to 85% of the owners in the state were owned by gas stations were owned by petroleum refiners like BP. In fact, when I started, it was still Ohio. Sunoco, Shell, Gulf, Texaco, so forth and so on. Today, it's less than 1% of the total tank population in the state is owned by petroleum refiners. The last refiner relationship is Speedway, and that's with Marathon Oil. You can thank BP, Sunoco, I don't care if they know it, and Shell. They got out of the marketing business. They sold their gas stations to whoever. They didn't care as long as they had the money.
And the federal law that was enacted was set up for these big companies. The law is made for the big owners to understand these requirements. And then, of course, big oil decides, oh no, we found a way around these laws. We're going to sell our tanks to small jobbers and small owners. So you have these regulations that haven't changed since the 80s that are really made for big oil companies. And we're trying to take that and we're trying to have these small owners go through the system and try to understand it when it really wasn't made for them.
And so I'd like to just interject there a little bit. I think that, the Cincinnati Fire Department has 2 fire specialists that are trained and certified through Buster to kind of do some of the operational, either assistance or oversight. And perhaps District Chief Caldwell, with regards to, if you could maybe address how your fire specialists, or I also see that Assistant Chief Washington is on as well, The fact is that there are only 2 fire specialists that are certified in the City of Cincinnati Fire Department to provide that kind of assistance or oversight on Buster. And maybe talk a little bit about what your program does and maybe what some of the needs are to maybe provide some additional assistance. Some of those outfits like this that maybe could use some additional either oversight or ensure that they have the training, that they know the systems that they're actually responsible for operating, and ensure that it's getting done properly.
Sure. We also have, I don't know if you've seen, we had Specialist Harden, who is our Buster certified trained person on the call as well. So he can speak more to it because he is a certified individual that's been doing it for quite some time, the most senior individual to it. But as they said, it's a lot to it, and we're delegated and we follow the same rules that Buster had for us. So, and we get trained by them. So it's more or less like they said when they back in a few years back, they were swamped with more work, and so they start to delegate out the work if they train the personnel. And that's how we, as a fire department, start doing some of this delegated work, was through Buster training and going through their regulations. And so the specific training and types and certifications and hours and things we do down here, Specialist Harden can really talk about kind of what we do. And a lot of it's the permitting process. Because Buster still comes down and do the inspections and things of that nature, but we'll do more of the permitting process and the paperwork for some of the things that we require for the City of Cincinnati. So Specialist Harden, are you still there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Yes, typically we have a gas station, for instance, let's say 4501 West 8th Street. Typically, had they not had this release and had they had just wanted to upgrade their piping system, typically they would have submitted a permit to do so. We would look at the permit and they would tell us what it is that they wanted to change about their system as far as the repair, and we would issue them a permit in order to do that repair. Now, once they start that repair, we would be on site and we would witness the repair of that system. And typically we would do a tightness testing prior to them covering the system up, and then we will do another tightness test once they final tightness test once they add the concrete on top of the system. So typically for most every type of repair, we'll be doing basically 2 tightness tests on that system prior to it going into service. With 4501 West 8th Street, the fact that the owner has agreed, and of course we've encouraged him to replace all his piping and not necessarily just try to concentrate on the issue he had with his premium line. So that owner is going above and beyond as far as what he needs to do in order to get his system back up and running. And of course, we will be there, me and Fire Specialist Lang, to ensure that every step of the way that they're doing what they needed to do. There was some talk earlier about the different types of tanks and designs. Those tanks are currently manifolded together, which means they're basically kind of connected through their vent system and things of that nature. Once we uncover those tanks, there may be something there to where we may have to, replace the vent lines. We may have to do, other things as well, but we'll make that determination once we have those items uncovered.
And how long is all of this work anticipated to take? Do we have that schedule yet?
Currently, I don't have the schedule as far as how long it's going to take, but just like the tier 1 digging of the observation wells, we could run into an issue to where it may take an additional day or so, to formulate a new plan or what have you. So it just depends on once we have everything uncovered, we have the tank tops uncovered, then we'll be able to have a better timeline as to when everything will be completed.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Lynn, we have 3 hands raised currently.
Okay,
Karen Ball, Lance Alota, and Laura Hamilton in that order.
go ahead, Karen.
Thanks. I guess this question is for Specialist Harden. Are you finding anything that suggests they should have had a permit for work that they were doing prior to the release?
I can't speak on the work they were doing inside the building. That would be more of a building permit question. But from me being on site, from what I can tell, that they were operating within their realm as far as when they were troubleshooting the system. So as of the actual tank itself and the tank system, from what I've seen, they did not need a permit for the things that they were doing and the troubleshooting that they were attempting to do of their system.
Okay, and one follow-up question. They got their permit today. Were you out was anyone out inspecting while they were jackhammering and tearing up concrete today?
Our other specialist, fire specialist Lang, visited the site. Typically, when they uncover the system, there's no requirement for us to be present. But whenever they touch any of the actual lines, we are required by law to be there with any removal or any installation. But it's my understanding that Specialist Lang drove by the site just to see what was going on, and the fact that they were moving. Our biggest issue is that they were moving forward with trying to ascertain what's needed, and as far as the repair.
Okay.
Like I said earlier,
real quick, and they're doing multiple things on that gas station, so we can't assume that when they're cutting or doing something, it's to replace the lines, or they're doing something that involves the permit. There's multiple things going on at the gas station, and they're testing and looking and getting set up to get ready to do this big project. And I talked to Dan earlier today, and I called it open heart surgery for the gas station. They're really getting ready to gut this thing and get to the weeds of what this gas station has underneath it. And this is something that I've never seen done here since I've been around the city of Cincinnati, for a gas station to upgrade this amount when they didn't have to. So this part, they're doing a whole lot up there right now to get set up and get ready. They're set to touch the lines maybe middle of next week, and Dan can possibly help me with that. But middle of next week is the timeline, and it can go for about a week before they can get everything patched up, repaired, and closed back up. So we're looking at up to 10 to 14 days before they're closing this thing back up.
Thank you very much for those responses. Let's see, Eric, who's next hand up, you said?
Oh, Lance Alota.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This question deals with response more than this specific situation. And it's directed to Specialist Harden, the chief, and maybe Mr. Young could comment on this as well. But a specialist, if it's a relief to me to know that there are at least a couple Cincinnati Fire Department personnel who are trained on Buster and these type of issues. But is there a response team? I would like to see an interagency response team that could have responded on Christmas Eve when gasoline was smelled in these 3 homes that reported it. Somebody from MSD, some representatives from the fire department. Mr. Young may have people from the city emergency response office. It seems like we have the SWAT team in law enforcement. SWAT team's made up of law enforcement officers from a bunch of different agencies. They all have their day-to-day responsibilities. But when there's a SWAT event happening, they all drop what they're doing and they immediately respond. It seems like we ought to have something like that for hazmat, for gasoline type incidents, and that those people could have responded as soon as a problem was evident. Thank you.
Can I chime in? This is Assistant Fire Chief Mike Washington.
Yes, please.
On the second day, when this incident first jumped off on the 24th, there was a fire response to responded to the area for fumes in the area in multiple homes. At that time, we didn't know that we had a release at the gas station. They thought that there was possibly something in the sewer that had been spilled. So this was kind of like an investigation from the outside in. Once we did get to finding out the causation of the spill or in the fumes, we did activate our hazardous materials response, and the partners were all notified at that time. So unfortunately, we didn't discover it on the 24th. But once we did discover what it was, all those partners were activated: MSD, Health, Cincinnati Fire, Buster, our specialist, our hazard materials rescue company 14, our regular fire companies in the area. So we did our due diligence. So we do have professionals that work for our agency, and we're one of the few departments in the state that actually have Buster certified fire specialist.
That's good to know. Thank you. I did not know if a team like that existed. It gives me some comfort to know that it does. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's another hand up.
Yes, Laura Hamilton.
Hi, both my questions are for Fire. Chief Washington's statement just prompted me to, want to make a statement or clarify something, because I don't want any record of any public meeting to be ambiguous here. Chief Washington, when those other agencies were brought in, that was in the very late afternoon on the 26th, correct?
I can respond from MSD. I know MSD was out there the day before Christmas doing some flushing. On the day of Christmas, it was too cold, however, to do the flushing, but we did have investigators out on Christmas Day, both in the field as well as the office, looking for potential sources, from our database, if you will, of cleaning agencies, because again, it was inconclusive from some of the information that we had as to what the sources were. So we were looking through all of our databases, as well as had boots on the ground on the day before Christmas and Christmas Day, and then continued to escalate investigations.
Yeah, and at no point did fire had a presence there 24 hours a day, basically. People legally dump all the time, so we were trying to determine, was this an illegal dump? What is it? And it's really, really difficult to pinpoint releases. So we just kind of had to keep taking stabs at this thing until we were actually able to find out definitively with meters and being in close proximity to that fuel station that they were actually the violators. It just took a while to figure it out.
I don't want to beat you up, Chief Washington. I know you came out here and you were very nice to a lot of people on Christmas Day, and I saw your trucks around, and I'm well aware of that. But I just, again, want to make sure that the record is clear. I personally talked to the MSD investigator on the telephone on the afternoon of the 26th, and they were trying to figure it out up at 8th and Overlook. They were nowhere near that station. I personally called the Hamilton County Emergency Management Agency. I called the Ohio EPA Emergency Spill Hotline and told them both there's a leak at the gas station and it's gotten into the sewer. And I texted the mayor of Cincinnati at 9:30 on the 25th in the morning and said, there's a leak at the station. There are people that are on this call right now who made similar calls to various agencies and said there's a leak at the gas station. One person that's on this call called the gas station themselves and said to the gas station itself, you're leaking, you need to shut down your pumps. So I just want that to be clear in the record that it wasn't until the late afternoon of the 26th that homes were evacuated and some of these other responses were activated. Whether it was because it wasn't clear or for whatever those reasons were, that didn't happen until very late in the afternoon on December 26th. And then I had a second question that I wanted to ask for fire, because I don't want to belabor that point. I just want to make sure the record is correct. And that was to Specialist Harding. Specialist Harding, you were talking about, look, let me preface my question by saying, I feel like you guys at fire may be the residents' best hope and the only, backstop for us here, based on some of what I'm hearing. So I want to make sure that I thank you guys for all you're doing and continue to do, and, let you know that I understand that you guys are probably the agency that's going to protect us most. So I appreciate you. I don't want to sound like I'm being a jerk. I heard you say, Specialist Harding, that you may discover things once the tanks are uncovered, additionally in terms of vent lines or other items that may also need to be replaced. And so I just want to make sure I understand, did you mean that fire itself will do a visual inspection of these tanks? Or did you mean simply that someone else will do that and tell you? I'm trying to understand how that works. Thank you.
That's a great question. Actually, it is both of those things. Typically, once they do the repair, we'll do a tightness test. We'll go down and we'll soap every inch of that line to ensure that we don't have any leaks or anything of that nature. And we'll also take a look at the vent lines as well, and we'll ensure that they do not have links and that they're connected correctly. So it would be typically, if they find something before we see it, they'll conduct a repair themselves. They'll tell us about it, and of course we'll take a look at it. But also, while we're doing our inspection, if we uncover something, then we'll have them repaired as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have any other hands up?
No.
For some reason. Okay. All right. Well, I would like to add another thing that I didn't mention previously, and that is an update from MSD. MSD has, we have also, as of today, actually issued a notice of violation to the gas station. It includes 7 different violations, essentially discharging prohibited discharges of pollutants that could create fire or explosive hazard, petroleum, oil, pollutants that could create and did create gases, fumes, vapors that cause acute worker health or safety problems. These are essentially our rules and regulations of prohibited use. So, this really applies to everybody. And so, we don't have to issue a special permit to, our users. These are just like thou shall not do. So we have issued those violations, as well as the 4th violation of prohibited discharge of liquids that cause a public nuisance, hazard to life, prevent entry of into our sewers for maintenance and repair. And then we've also issued 3 different reporting violations. And so that notice of violation went out today, and it does have a penalty of about $12,000 that we have issued to the owner of the gas station because of this situation. And MSD continues to, to flush the system. We feel like that is, based on conversations, expertise that we get from USCPA, from ACT and others, that it's beneficial to continue to get fresh water through the system. So we're doing that. And then also the owner will have the opportunity to attend a compliance assistance meeting with us to, tell us specifically what they're doing to address this. And but we did issue that today. And then secondly, Councilmember Smitherman has requested that we come to his committee of law and public safety, that we being the collective we of the agencies that are involved in this situation, and report to the City Council committee on February 16th, I think at 9 o'clock. And we will be providing an updated report to the committee at that time. I do see that, I think I see Councilmember Smitherland in our, on the screen here. And if I just wanted to offer any comments that you might want to make as well. If not. Oh.
Yes, I'm appreciative of the update. So I've just been listening. I appreciate all of the coordination, and I'm making myself familiar, but I look forward to the update in February. And thank you very much for the update.
Yep, thank you.
And then we have two hand raised of Karen
Okay.
Ball and Laura Hamilton.
Great. Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, real quick. I guess this question is to Adam. At the last meeting, it was, we were notified that there were 30 days to submit a third-party claim. Have there been any third-party claims submitted?
I received one for some air purifying units, but that's the thing I've received so far.
And a follow-up question on that. Does the lack of a third-party claim preclude MSD or fire or others from recouping some of their the work that they had to do to isolate the issue? Can they recoup any of that out of that those funds?
I do not know.
So Karen, I can address that as best I can. We do anticipate, once we have more of a full accounting of potential costs for cost recovery, we plan on making that notice. We just don't have that accounting right now, but we do plan on doing that, and we will be coordinating that with other agencies if they're interested. I do want to just mention again, at that website, msdgc.org/gas leak, that we do mention out there how to file a claim or whatnot. That is through Dan Adams, and that it is the clock starts once Dan is aware of that claim.
So I guess the 30-day, Adam, can you explain the 30-day window? Does everyone have to be in with a third-party claim before the 30 days are up? Because it seems to me that we're getting close, or not.
It's 30 days from when when the owner and I become aware of it. So there's no, the clock isn't ticking right now.
Only for the one that you already are reviewing.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a window that closes for any submittals of third-party claim?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The second hand?
Laura Hamilton.
Hi, I wanted to ask you a question, Mary Lynn, if I could. You mentioned these violations that were issued and that they carry some penalties. So the first part of the question is, are these civil violations or criminal under the municipal code, if you know?
They're actually under the MSD rules and regulations. And so they are penalties that carry a fine. And so they are penalties in violations of our rules and regulations.
Okay, I'm asking because I've seen people charged in the past, bad landlords and whatnot, doing work here in the community with discharging sewage in improper ways and things of that nature, and those are typically criminal violations. So this is different than that.
Yeah, this is not at this point criminal.
Okay, and then part two of that question was, from the purview of the city, and it may not really be up to you, Mary Lynn, it may be up to fire or someone else that's on this call, but from the purview of the city of Cincinnati, before a new permit to resume operation, you know, outside of Buster, outside of double walled piping and all these other things we're talking about, from the purview of the city permitting the operation to resume, will that be conditional on the owner's participation in this sort of advisory meeting about compliance you're talking about and the payment of these fines?
So MSD is working very closely with all of the partners here, in particular Cincinnati Fire Department, with regards to any operational permit. And we're going to be making sure that we're on, you know, the same page and working very closely with the solicitor's office to ensure that you know, any risk of this happening again is not there anymore with regards to the types of systems that they have in place to ensure that it will not.
Mary Lynn, from the fire department standpoint, we're doing the same thing. We've engaged the city solicitor's office to ensure that before we open this gas station back up, we consult with them and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do as a fire department as well.
I appreciate that from both of you. I guess the question I'm asking is, will we require, you know, maybe not the taxpayer to be made completely whole or the ratepayers of the sewer rate, but the $12,000 fine that we're talking about, are we going to require? And maybe the answer is maybe, or that you don't know. I just don't think I understood clearly. Are we going to require or possibly require this meeting and this payment of fines before they are permitted to resume operation from the purview of the city of Cincinnati?
So actually, the you know, the fine and the penalty is something, you know, somewhat separate from the city of Cincinnati, because the Metropolitan Sewer District is a separate entity outside of the city of Cincinnati. Our rules and regulations are separate and distinct. We are requiring the meeting, so the meeting must happen. And we do have a enforcement response plan that is a response plan for enforcement that we're required under the Clean Water Act to have, and that we implement it consistently and uniformly and as it is laid out. So based on the situation that occurred, the violations that occurred, we have, you know, now notified the entity of those violations, the penalty it carries. And so our next step is to have the compliance assistance meeting with them. And those are the fines that we have determined are appropriate for the situation that happened. And then in the compliance assistance meeting, it will be up to the owner again to kind of outline what they're doing to address the issues. And again, it could be that we want systems to be in compliance. We want systems to not be causing harm and concern and threat and nuisance and whatnot. So if it is possible under our enforcement response plan to allow some of the penalties that we've assessed to be put into systems that are actually going to ensure this doesn't happen again. So again, those kinds of things are part of our enforcement response plan, and that's something that we will utilize to ensure that we are protecting our workers, our public and ratepayers for this situation and with the owner that we have.
Deputy Director Loader.
Yes.
At what point, let me ask, will the community be notified that the operator is going to be back in business? Like the checkpoint, you know, I'm trying to get an understanding so that, you know, when will the city or when will the community in particular know, like, hey, they've been cleared by all the teams, including our fire department, to begin operation? I'm just trying to see, are they in the loop prior to them saying yes?
I'm going to thank you for that question. I'm going to ask the fire district chief about that, because it's actually a Cincinnati Fire Department permit that issues the operation permit. And this is our third meeting of this kind of group that we're updating on a regular basis. I know we have other meetings with your meeting and others, but with regards to the issuance of the operations permit, we will be coordinating with the fire department. It's their call. However, we're working together with them in the solicitor's office to ensure that we're all on the same page and we feel confident that all of the issues are taken care of before that happens, and we're not there yet. And District Chief Caldwell or Chief Washington.
100% yes.
Thank you.
100% yes. They will know before this happens. We will not open this gas station back up until the West Price Hill community hear about it, know about it, and they'll know it before.
Well, thank you very much for that answer. And I think that will build confidence, that the city is going to have a clear check, which will allow the community to know that all of these questions have been answered and that they feel safe with the operation of the station. So anyway, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much for that question as well. I think we are just about at close to 8:30 or maybe later, I guess. No, it's 8:30. So our next step, there's a lot of work to do next week, really is when this work is going to get started. So I was anticipating that we'd probably get together again. We could provide an update perhaps on February 9th, I think is that a Tuesday? And I know that I think this community council meets on the 10th. So I was just thinking that might be a good time to have another follow-up update. So check your emails and Deb will be sending out an update on that for that meeting. And with that, I will wrap it up unless there's any parting questions or comments.
We have a hand raised from Laura Hamilton.
Cincinnati Fire Department here, District Chief Caldwell. I was peeking at the chat and there was a few residents that said they had smells or they were smelling things going on. They're going to be doing a lot of work up there. The fire department is still at the ready for anyone who wants us to come in and do a reading in their homes. So we're there every day. We have meters that we could come in and sweep anyone's home that feel like there's fumes or smells or anything in the neighborhood. And they can go through either calling the fire department or they can go through the hotline that you created through MSD for that. So we haven't left the community. We've been there every day since this incident's been going on, and we're waiting for requests if there's any, for if anyone wants or think they need a reading in their home for any fumes of that sort. So feel free to reach out to us if they need that.
Okay. Lori, did you have something?
Yeah, just one more thing. You mentioned having the next meeting on the 9th and the community council met on the 10th, but Tuesday the 9th is the community council meeting at 7. So
Okay.
that's kind of problematic.
Thank you. I got my Tuesdays and Mondays mixed up. Yeah, we originally set to meet on Monday. So that's what we'll do. We'll do the Monday before community council.
Okay, so the 8th. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.